Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. I have to apologize to you guys because I had some technical issues that prevented us from going live on time, so that is my bad, but I am definitely excited to be here with you guys right now. We are going to have what I think is a pretty good show. We have Brent from IG Comic Store on the line right now. Brent, it is good to see you, brother, and I definitely appreciate you taking time out to actually jump on the line with me. Have what I think is a pretty good show. We have Brent from IG Comic Store
thank you for
on the
having
line
me
right now. Brent, it is good to see you, brother, and I definitely appreciate you taking time out. Hey, Brent, I think we may need to mute your line there. If you go to the window that we're chatting in YouTube, you may have to mute your line. All right, that is much better. So let's do that again. I am pumped to be on the show today. I am joined by Brent from IG Comic Store. Brent, it is good to see you, and also hopefully be able to hear you now. How are things?
Great, brother. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. I'm a noob when it comes to this stuff, but thank you. Yeah, great. Thank you for having me on here, man. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to get this going, man. To talk the good gospel.
The good gospel indeed. But before we get into that, I tried to give a little bit of an introduction as to who you were on my Sunday show, my preview show called Ready, Set, Go. And I probably did not do you justice. Can you give people a little bit of an introduction as to who Brent is? And for those that don't know, tell them what IG Comic Store actually is. That
might be a loaded, that almost sounds like a loaded question. Hey, I'm a collector, plain and simple. I'm a collector. I've been collecting since I was a kid. I'm just turned 37 on the 15th of this month.
Happy birthday.
And hey, thank you. I'm a very particular collector. I always have been. You know, I've done things a certain way. I had a great teacher behind that to help me with that, and I had no clue that we would eventually, you know, spiral down to this path. But I'm glad we did, because it's been great and I love it. So
very cool. You're being very modest. You actually run a solid virtual store, IG Comic Store, that I've bought from before. You guys send out some amazing books, incredible variants, beautiful artwork, and you have bulletproof shipping. So you are definitely being modest. But we're going to dig into some really cool stuff over the course of this conversation. And I'm actually very excited about it. But before we get to that, I want to say hello to a couple of people here in the room that have joined us as part of this chat. Chris Barrett is in the house. Chris, it is good to see you. Brian Garcia is here. Gruff is here. Robert Johnson is in the house. Santiago Comics is here. So is my buddy Tina. Tina, it is good to see you. Russ C is here. James, Wayne, Joseph, and my good buddy Marvel Joe. Marvel Joe, I just completed a video earlier today, brother, giving you a huge shout out. So it is definitely good to see you here in the chat. So with that said, we always have a purpose for these live streams that we're doing. And we do have a purpose. We have two of them actually for this live stream. One of them is to highlight two underrated and potentially undervalued comics, and also story arcs that could be of interest to you. And as part of that, what we're going to do is we're going to rely upon Brent to help us out here as we try to explain what makes these books interesting and hopefully significant enough for you to actually either pick up or actually read on like Marvel Unlimited or Comixology or something like that. So this conversation is really all about, here are two really cool books that maybe you guys haven't heard about. And Brent has actually, as a longtime collector, has actually selected these two stories, and we are going to spend some time digging into them, kind of talking about what makes these two books really cool. Brent, did I miss anything in that?
No, you did. No, Reggie, you're 1000% on point. I might throw a little spin on this, on one of the stories. That is, I'm not going to.
Okay.
We're not deviating from the stories, obviously here. But let's please. I'm going to follow your lead, brother. So
we are all about the curveballs, and we are all about having some fun. So we are going to roll with it. But as a reminder, if you guys haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I definitely want to encourage you to do that so that you can stay abreast of all the content that I release on a weekly basis. So, Brent, my first question to you is, what are the 2 books that you have selected to share with us tonight?
Avenger. Okay, gosh, you know, hold on. I'm going straight off willpower and memory right now, but it's Avengers 2 issue 263, which also ties in with Fantastic Four. Come on,
286.
286. There we go. 286.
Those are indeed the 2 books. So, for the sake of transparency, because I am all about transparency on this show, I actually only have one of those books. I have the Avengers 263. I do not have the Fantastic Four book. Do you own these books that we're going to be spending a little bit of time talking about right now?
I did. We did. Yeah, exactly right. As soon as we post this stuff, you know, most of our customers want to buy it. They want to jump on it, and that's exactly what happened. So I don't have them, but I can talk a lot about them. And if you're in front of a computer or your phone, Google search these titles. That way you can at least look at the Marvel Wiki and have some type of reference to what we're talking about. Maybe that might be some help.
Yep. So who is it? Chris Barrett says he has Avengers 239 as well. I think that's a pretty common book. Oh, he has 2. What does he have? 239. Okay.
Yeah, it's not 263, but 239 is a good issue as well.
Yep. But we are definitely going to be talking about 263. So it sounds like you don't have these issues. I have one of them, but not the other. And again, this is just all for the sake of transparency to let you guys know, you know, that we do or do not have these books, just so that everybody's clear about that. So Brent, at a high level. At a high level, what makes Avengers 263 and Fantastic Four 286 significant in your mind?
It's the return of Jean Grey. I mean, it's like she dies, or does she die? Not really, you know. You know, but it's a great story, and I love that they tied Avengers in with Fantastic Four in this little mini arc, if you will, because it brought about X Factor, one of the greatest effing teams that might have ever been formed. Sorry, my hands are in my face right now, but you understand the enthusiasm.
Brother, it is perfectly fine. I talk with my hands as well, so you are in good company. But to your point, this is essentially a self-contained story between these 2 issues that features the return of Jean Grey.
Right.
There we go. And so this is a little bit of a retcon, right? Because to your point that you were just making, Jean Grey basically died, and then it was decided that they were going to bring her back, correct?
Right. There's a lot of, there's all kinds of different theories out there, but you know, Chris Claremont himself has actually commented on this a lot, because it has to do with, you know, Madeline Pryor, if you're familiar with that. So I mean, but the way they brought her back, you know, the way is it okay if I dive into that now, or
no? I mean, you can talk about it at a high level. Then we're going to go into each one of the issues, but it's cool right now. Yeah.
The way they brought her back, like being in the cocoon, I thought that was pretty rad. Like, that's cool, man. Like, and Miss Marvel, for those who read, you need to find out which Miss Marvel I'm talking about. Monica. Yeah, you know, go read it, man. If you haven't read it, read it.
But so wait a minute, what did Chris Claremont have to say about this thing?
Well, he didn't mean, I guess, I forget exactly, but he, you know, it's best if I not say anything in case I get this wrong, and the guys watching do the research, because it's readily out there. But I know it ties in with Madeline Pryor. It's a mistake he made with both of them, and it might be confusing the appearances of both of them. But it ties in with this because it ties in when I guess when she was brought back. It's really it's odd. I don't know. But I mean, this is coming from his mouth. He wrote this, so
Yeah. I actually need to dig a little bit deeper into this issue myself, but I know for a fact that a lot of fans did not necessarily like the return of Jean Grey. I think people over time have come to accept it, but based upon what I was able to find at the time, people didn't necessarily want to see Jean Grey come back, but she's back. And to your point, all of this stuff kind of led to the creation of X Factor and some other things that happened down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and dig into these issues one by one, right? So let's go ahead and talk about, and you kind of teed it up perfectly. Let's go ahead and talk about Avengers 263 first. So give us a rundown of basically what happened in this issue.
Well, it's going to be a quick rundown. I mean, it's so the scientist here, you've got guys on the getaway trying to get away. You have a plane that crashes in Jamaica that consists of it's basically the bad guys that are trying to get away that fail. And in the midst of everything, I'm going to try to sum everything up because there's a lot of filler stuff that it kind of helps lead up to it. Maybe I can go into it, or I
go for it.
Okay. There's cops involved. There's, they're trying to find out what this big clunk in the water, this explosion they heard was. And, long story short, and by the way, Black Knight is lusting over the Wasp, but you need to go back a few issues to really understand that, I guess.
Yeah.
Building up into this, but there's a quirky moment in there. I'm sure you understand. You read it, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, so long story short, Miss Marvel, she dives in the water. She wants to assess the situation that's going on, and she hears this voice that's echoing like out of the cocoon. So I mean, like, could you imagine just diving in the water? You're trying to find something, and you're hearing like, get the F away, or just get back, like this. And who knows, I'm picturing this demonic voice that's like got like four people talking, echoing through the water. Who knows what it really was, but
so basically what we had the Enclave. We had the Enclave, 3 members of the 4th group Enclave that are essentially escaping. Something happens, their plane goes down. And for those that don't know, the Enclave are basically the scientists that used deviant technology to create him, who later became Adam Warlock, and they also created her. And so these guys were escaping, plane goes down. Monica Rambeau, right, the Black Captain Marvel, to Brent's point, goes and investigates and sees basically what looks like a cocoon, right? Looks like Adam Warlock's cocoon. And that causes all kinds of pandemonium to Brent's point that he's making right now. But Brent, is there anything else that you want to kind of add to like that whole experience of what went down and with the cocoon and the voice and stuff like that?
That was, I mean, okay, so I'm going to deviate again. I'm going to deviate from the story for a second, and I want to focus on the cover art.
Okay.
For those that played the Avengers game came on Sega Genesis, or I think it even came out on the arcade. Okay, there was a part where you're underwater, and on that game, there's Captain America, there's Hawkeye, I think there's Vision, Iron Man, and I forget somebody else. I forget exactly who it was. But the cover reminds me of that game because they're wearing the same gear. Anyways, I don't know if John Buscema, if any of that, if the creators of this game, they saw this cover of Avengers 263, and I don't know, it helped create that world and that sequence for them. But I just wanted to point that out. It's kind of irrelevant, but it's not.
No, it definitely is an interesting cover that sticks out in my memory. Like when you mentioned that you wanted to talk about this issue, I could actually picture the cover in my mind. I'm not that familiar with the game, but I am definitely familiar with the cover art. And I'm not even sure who the artist was. Did you say it was John Buscema? Is that who you said?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you're aware who John Buscema is, but I mean, he's definitely legendary. He's done some great stuff, so it wouldn't surprise me if they took some kind of inspiration for that.
Yep, I'm actually trying to find the cover here, so I don't know if folks can actually see that. Not the best because I have light shining right into my my face here, but it's actually a pretty interesting cover. So one of the things that I did is I went and looked up on Go Collect the prices for this book, and I think some other people kind of made mention of that here, talking about the fact that a 9.8 graded book actually only sells for about $50. And so I'm curious, given like the historical significance of like the return of Jean Grey, given the crossover of this story between Avengers and Fantastic Four, the creation of X Factor, the Enclave, the him and Monica Rambeau, all that stuff mixed in there. I'm curious, why do you think that this book is still only valued at roughly $50 for a 9.8? Any thoughts about that?
You know, I've got a lot of thoughts on that, and this thought echoes through any back issue that's out there right now. Okay, so it doesn't just pertain to this, but you got to think about how many books are being thrown in your face every week that are coming out every week. It's easy to forget about this stuff. I mean, there's so many exciting stories coming out. I mean, especially right now, there's a lot of creative writers. Heck, we've got Jonathan Hickman coming back for X-Men, which I'm just going to name drop right now on Regie's show that we're doing exclusives with Adi Granov for House of X and Power of X coming out in July, which are apparently going to be monumental for the X-Men franchise. And according to Marvel, that's not just saying that, it's this is real stuff. So whatever happens here sticks. But what's cool is for each cover, again, this is we haven't mentioned this anywhere. It hasn't been out anywhere, so it's only here. What's cool is they let us pick what teams or what characters we wanted to see from what timelines on which cover. So I'm gonna lay it all out here. Just one of the covers.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say 3 words: Age of Apocalypse. Okay. And that's that. We'll reserve the rest for the next segment on Reggie's show. But that was a first appearance drop right there.
So we're talking, and I never pronounce his name right, but we're talking Adi Granov is going to be doing some exclusive variants. One of them is going to be Age of Apocalypse related through IG Comic Store. Is that what I'm hearing?
The cover will be Age of Apocalypse related, but this is for House of X and Powers of X. So they're 2 separate titles. So Jonathan, so these titles are going to. This is probably Marvel's biggest arc or story this year that they're releasing, with the exception of Carnage, which is also coming out in August. So it's.
But isn't this like a reboot of the reboot? Because wasn't like Extinction and then X-Men Disassembled kind of like the relaunch of X-Men? And now we're talking about House of X and Power of X. They're basically kind of sort of doing another reboot, yeah?
Not quite. And if I may offer just a different perspective on this.
Yeah, please do.
So you got to kind of think of these, because a lot of guys get mad because they see reboots, they see issue 1 come up again. And I've come to make terms and peace with it. You got to think of it like this. It's the recognition of a new story arc that's coming around. So it's a whole new arc. It's a whole new tale of this team and their members, and the writer behind it, that if you've read anything Jonathan Hickman has done, I shouldn't have to really say anymore. I mean,
he had a bananas Fantastic Four run.
He's legend. So like, this isn't really a House of M, or it really isn't, because Hickman didn't do that.
Yep. So
Uh,
are they keeping the same naming convention, or are they starting over with the number one? I'm just curious.
well, I mean, this is a whole new arc, so this is a new title. So yeah, it is going to
Oh,
be one, but it's not going to fall under the Uncanny Line title that's already happening now.
got it. That's
So
what
this is
I think that's the part that I was missing is I thought it was going to go under the uncanny. This is a separate title unto itself we're talking about.
right, right, right. And these will all like intertwine. They'll all intertwine. They'll all like, with that storyline and with others. So there's more X related stuff that's going to come to light here soon.
Very cool.
And so like the cool thing about this, so I mean they've been waiting for this, but think about the timing. Like the deal just closed with
Yep. Disney
and so
and
you have
Fox.
to think about. So they're very smart. They already knew about this stuff. This stuff has been planned. It's premeditated. It's been in the works for a while. Yes, we're doing, and we're Silver Surfer actually has a. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I saw a comment here. So Silver Surfer does have a new series. It's a mini series that comes out in June. And I'm going to name drop another first appearance here on Regie Collectibles. We're doing an exclusive on that as well with Scott Williams. So, yes.
Very cool.
Yes.
And then what we were just talking about with the House of M Power of X. I'm sorry, House of X Power of X. When are we potentially going to see that? Is that coming up soon?
July.
There we go. Very cool. That's some very cool stuff. I did not know you were going to do that, but I am definitely on board as an X-Men fan. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was just thinking in my head. I don't even know if I was able to even say this stuff or not.
Too late, brother.
About it. So here we go.
And my buddy, I think it was Rag718, basically says, I didn't know IG Comic Store was a person. Yes, IG Comic Store is a person, and his name is Brent, and he is on Regie Collects right now. Wave hello, Brent.
Well, it's not just so I've got to give my mentor, my partner JR. If you're watching, he's a big part of this team. So thank you if you are watching this for what you do. So yeah, man,
he is a living, breathing person.
We exist. We're not robots. We do exist.
I think that's one of the cool things about like the interviews that I do is that it actually gives people an opportunity to see the faces behind the logos and the brands that people have come to know. And I think that's really what's great about your willingness to come on the show and spend a little time talking with us, not just about, some of the really exciting variants that you're bringing out, but then also some of these old back issues to your earlier point that people sometimes forget about. And I think that that's part of what we're trying to do here is to basically say, there's a lot of really cool stuff happening now, but there was also some really cool stuff that happened in the past as well.
So I'm listening to you and I'm reading some of these comments, and I've got like some books here that I've got set to the side that I guess I'm going to show later.
Okay. So we were talking a little bit about how and why Avengers 263 was only really valued at roughly $50. And I think your thought was that because there's so much really good stuff that comes out over time, people might forget about some of these wonderful story arcs.
Exactly. But the other thing to really note here is like, let's really also think about like what's hyping a lot of books up. A lot of it is media influenced. It's the movies. It's the Netflix series, which no longer exists, which will be now Marvel, thank God. So I mean, all this stuff has been really driving the market. And I mean, statistically, man, like I can get in real depth with you because I measure this stuff. I measure the growth of this stuff. I mean, we have to, because we want to understand what our readers like. I can't just say, hey, just because I like it, I want our customers, our fans, friends, collectors, our fellow collectors to like it too. It's a big open door.
Yep.
And
great.
The wall behind you speaks to that open door of stories.
As long as it's Marvel, my friend.
Hey, well, we can agree to disagree there. I love me some DC. Hey, next time I'm coming on the show, we need to do a DC special.
Yeah, as long as it's Batman, brother. I
Might
have a
do
very
it.
my door is only open so much. So here, do you think that there's potential with Avengers 263 to actually increase in value, right? I don't know what's happening with this Dark Phoenix line. I don't know what the future of the MCU looks like now that Disney now owns the X-Men again. But do you think that there's any long-term potential in this story arc? I mean, I read it and I actually really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the Avengers book more so than the FF book. But do you think that there's any long-term potential in potentially seeing this book increase in value?
No. Unfortunately, I mean, it's when you said $50, that's not GPA. Whoever said that, it's closer to a little over 100. But to the point, no, like it. Fantastic Four is just going to hold more precedence over Avengers because that is the actual return of Jean Grey. And it also is John Byrne was paying homage to one of one of his greatest covers. And if there's anybody if anybody's watching wants to name what that cover is, first appearance Phoenix. I'll wait a couple seconds here. I'm just trying to see if you got some readers on here, man. I'm curious. Okay, it's 101. Okay. Point being is he paid homage to that cover because it was a significant point for Jean Grey when she turned to the Phoenix, and this point was the resurrection of the Phoenix, and he wanted to illustrate that as well, like she's alive again, she's coming out of the cocoon, so she's doing her stance again, and I'm just saying this stuff because the reader and even the collector, that's the attachment right there, and that's why the Fantastic Four, like that book, that's the book that's got unprecedented potential, man. It is a hidden gem. So like we like to post hidden gems. So I mean, I've been collecting for a long time, man. Like we're talking 50,000 plus books here that have been in my collection, and all near mint to near mint plus. So I'm very keen on a lot of different issues because I've owned multiple copies of them. So I usually know like what's been harder to get in near mint versus, which one is readily easy to get in near mint plus. And a lot of the Fantastic Four stuff is a little tougher, especially the John Byrne stuff. Now, anything 90s.
So let me recap for people here just a little bit. Basically, the question that I was asking was whether there was any long-term potential in Avengers 263, and the answer was that limitation. There is a limitation. There's a cap on that, and the reason being is because in the Avengers book, you actually don't see Jean Grey. You see her cocoon, right? So technically, that's not her true return. Her true return, and to the point someone asked of the hidden gem, Chris Barrett, is Fantastic Four 286. That's actually where you see Jean Grey. And that's where Brent was saying that's the homage, if you will, to X-Men 101, which is on the wall behind me. That was basically the point of what he was trying to say there. So I guess one of the questions that I have here is if there is no long-term potential, and if it's potentially capped at whatever the FMV is right now, it might make an inexpensive thing for someone to pick up to actually read because it's not a whole lot of money, or you could potentially read it on like Marvel Unlimited. I have a copy of it, but I also read it on Marvel Unlimited because it was a little bit easier to read it there than to go dig it in boxes. So it sounds like potentially the better way to go is to look at Fantastic Four 286. So let's go ahead and transition there. Let's talk about that issue. Brent, do you want to give people a rundown of like what happens there with that issue? What makes this issue special in your mind? Is it the cover? Is it the story? Like what makes this one stand out in your mind?
and I'm just gonna be completely transparent with you, Reggie. Like there's a few things that stick out. But the only thing that sticks out is her return, like her actual return. The emerge. Um, I actually had a question for you though. I'm just because I'm curious. Out out of the two issues that you read, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to digress back here, but the ending of 263, did it feel like you were going in to when you started Fantastic Four? Did it feel like you were feeding into Fantastic Four? Like, did the transition feel fluent?
For me, as a whole, I enjoyed the Avengers book more than I did the Fantastic Four. Partly because the Fantastic Four, I'm not a huge fan of the
The
order
writing
of
was that
Fantastic
great.
Four,
Say it.
and it was almost like a recap. And then I'm like, why are they in space? I forgot She-Hulk was part of the team that was out there in space. It was a little disconnected for me. Avengers was a much more enjoyable book, a better read in my estimation than was the Fantastic Four book. That book was a long book. And I just didn't enjoy the story because the whole thing that happened here in this book is the FF and the Avengers didn't recognize Jean Grey. Jean Grey had memory loss, didn't recognize the FF or the Avengers, and it just seemed like a cluster to me, and I just struggled with enjoying that issue.
And that's, man, I'm so glad you said that, man. I'm a lot of 90s stuff was like that. The writing was just bad. And so I that's why it was hard for me to speak. I was curious. I was like, what did you think, man? Like, it was not that great. It doesn't matter how great the guy was behind it. I think they were pumping out stuff and they had something tangible to work with here. It wasn't like it was, I mean, this is Phoenix, one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel universe. Anyways, not trying to get off topic here, but that's the climax of it is the writing a lot in these series. It and this kind of it intertwines with the value and the market price of the book. You know, the stories play a role too.
Yep.
And this story is good, but it's not phenomenal. It's not going to blow your mind.
Agreed.
But watch them do something in the MCU with this now that, you know, Marvel has control of Fantastic Four and X-Men, and that's why this book is going to be really hot, because something like that is going to happen. And when she does return, what's the issue you're going to turn to?
There you go. I think that's an excellent point because, you know, for me, I like if I can enjoy the cover and if I can enjoy the story, it's a win, right? But if I find myself taking a nap midway through the book, that's probably not a win. And that's basically what happened is I had to take a nap to finish the book. I just struggled with the FF. But I finished it and I thought it was fine. It seemed a little forced to me, and it wasn't as fun a read as I hoped that it was going to be from the onset, you know? But to your point though, I think that if all you need is a really good writer that writes some story now that ties back to that book in some way, shape, or form, or a really great MCU movie that points to that book, and then all of a sudden some magic will happen and everyone will think that that's the best book. There's no doubt in my mind about that one.
It's nail on the head.
There you go. And this book, based upon my research, basically shows that that a 9.8 goes for about $80 or something like that. But to the point that we're making here, there is probably some long-term potential in this one, but you might want to read it on Marvel Unlimited first before you actually buy it. That's just my opinion. I don't have this book and I don't know if I'll get it. If I see it really cheaply, then maybe I'll pick it up, but I don't know. I did think the cover was cool though, however.
Well, if I may offer just a different perspective of speculation here, sometimes, can you hear me? Can you
Yes.
hear me? Okay. Sometimes, there's different types of collectors, right? So John Byrne has done some extraordinary things, especially with cover art and just stories. So there's a lot of collectors that are attached to John Byrne stuff. So this appeals to that genre of collector, and that, like, that would be me, because I love everything that he's done. I have raw copies. I don't have any more graded copies because we've sold them all, but I have raw copies of this, of 286 FF or anything John Byrne related in general, because, and of course, for me, on something like this, I'm always after like that near mint plus.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to very fine, especially on something that's not Silver Age or Golden Age, and that's what we give. That's what we offer our customers, and that's a niche that we have. We want to give them the same thing that we're getting, because it's the way I've collected things, the way we've collected things here. So I just want to make note of that, because that can also determine value. When someone out there wants it bad enough and they go out and the market's dry, there's none on eBay, there's none out there for sale, and they're trying to find that near mint plus copy, and that's when they find out, damn, this thing is really freaking hard to find. Like, yeah, like they see one pop up for 150, 200, done, sold. You know what I mean? Like,
Rarity meets scarcity.
so right now it's available, but that doesn't mean it's going to readily always be available. It's really when the market catches on, and when certain collectors that maybe there's new collectors coming into the market every day. You know that.
Yep.
And they're catching on to new art, new styles, and I think one of the first things, if not the second, maybe third, okay, yeah, right, that some catch on to is the covers, right? And as a kid, when I was collecting this stuff, I actually never knew really who these cover artists was. I just loved the covers, man. I loved them, as I'm sure you did as well.
Pretty artwork is what draws you in. That's the first thing, right?
That's where McFarlane and Jim Lee and Platt, Eric Larson,
Mark Bagley,
yes, yeah. I mean, all of these guys that came in and they made you want to just, holy cow, that's cool.
Yep.
That's really cool, especially when McFarlane's doing interiors. I mean, his interior work is nice, man. I mean, but Scott Williams stuff equally. I mean, he's one of the best inkers and does some of the best line work in Marvel history, man. Like, guy is looking. So I mean, it's
so
I'm getting off topic.
So there's a comment here from Espinoza, basically saying he remembers all the hype for her return when these two books came out back in the day, and he basically says that the hype never delivered on the long-term value of those books. And I think that you're probably spot on. We started talking about at the beginning how her return wasn't necessarily welcomed by all fans, and he is kind of to some degree validating some of those earlier comments. But Brent, I think you wanted to make a point there.
Yes, thank you. Perspective is important here, I think, and I like to use this book as an example here. But ASM 300 didn't become anything for 20 plus years, so everybody forgets that. They're looking for this quick flip, and you're not a real collector if you're looking for that. Like, you really have to play the long game here. And the guys that loaded up on this early on, ASM 300 I'm talking about, obviously it's playing off for them, or any other big key issue like that. But I mean, again, think about how long it's taken for some of these issues to really catch steam. And why did they catch steam? MCU? I don't know. I think so.
Yeah.
I'm curious here.
Yeah, we actually did a We actually looked at the last 40 years. We looked at some blue chip comics and saw a steady increase in the overall value of many of those blue chip comics, both DC and Marvel. But there, and I actually did a poll recently on the YouTube channel where I basically said, what were some of the biggest influences on the comic book market overall? The internet, Overstreet, the MCU, the photo journal from Gerber. There were like a few options, and most people went with the internet and the MCU as two of the biggest, and then CGC. That was one of the other. Those are probably the biggest three influencers. And there's no doubt that the MCU movies, the TV shows, and all of that other stuff has influenced the overall comic book market. No doubt about it.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
All right. So, Brent, is there anything else that you want to talk about as it relates to these two titles, specifically the Avengers and the Fantastic Four 286? Any parting comments, anything that we haven't spoken about with regard to those two issues?
Not really. I actually think we covered the main points that are important and the significance of these two issues. More or less, I just, I encourage our audience to read, read this stuff. You're not going to know unless you read this stuff. We can talk about it all day, how we like it or don't like it. But the real thing here is to read, because there's a value in that. And that value equates to the market value of the book as well. And I was kind of alluding to that, I guess, a little bit. But, the writer has a lot of influence behind that, because when you have a great writer and you have a great team behind you, a powerhouse, magic happens. And that's exactly what's about to happen with Silver Surfer. That's coming out in June. You got Donnie Cates writing and Trade Moore doing interiors. IG Comic Store doing an exclusive for that bad boy, issue number 1, with Scott Williams. And then you got House of X and Powers of X by Jonathan Hickman. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm actually I don't know. I'm almost as excited to read the series as I am for the covers from Granov, because it's from Hickman. So it's cool. It's great. It's great.
So for those that missed that was a little bit of news right there that broke a little bit earlier in the live stream. Their IG Comic Store is doing some really cool stuff. Let's repeat it one more time. Let's make sure that people fully appreciate what you're describing here, when this stuff is going to drop, because you're talking about some really big names working on some really awesome titles.
So the almighty Liger King, you said, read who the hell reads comics? LOL. The guys that know what's going on, those are the ones who are reading. If you're not reading, you don't know what's going on. I encourage you to read, brother, sister. I'm not sure. I can't tell. King, so I think it's a guy. But anyways, whoever you are, read, brother, read. Cleanse your soul. Okay, so Reggie, my mind just went blank.
You were going to give us a quick rundown again of the really awesome news that you dropped regarding House of X and Power of X, and what's coming out from IG Comic Store.
Okay, so June, Silver Surfer, written by Donnie Cates. Interiors by Trade Moore, I believe. So we have an exclusive coming from Scott Williams. And if you don't know who Scott Williams is, I hate to say this, because Scott Williams has been a pinnacle for Jim Lee. And most don't know that, man. Like, because Jim Lee gets a lot of, he's Jim Lee. Jim Lee's badass, by the way. And pardon my language there, but Jim Lee's Jim Lee. He's amazing, right? But Scott Williams is legend too, and he's somebody that we've wanted to. Yeah, exactly. We've wanted to work with Scott Williams for a long time, and I think this, with his attachment to Silver Surfer and our attachment to Silver Surfer and the dynamic that we want to create, it's going to be amazing. For July, which, by the way, this stuff has not. So I hope we don't get in trouble for this shit, man, or this stuff. I'm serious, man. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, shit, man. Like, they might contact me tomorrow and be like, Brent, hey, I'm gonna say it anyways. July, House of X and Powers of X, 80 Granov, IG Comic Store exclusives. Yes, the thunder's coming.
Yeah. True indeed. Who is that says someone says thank you for the knowledge drop, and then someone else says virtual fist bump to IG Comic Store for the news. So I think people definitely appreciate the wonderful heads up on that.
Brother. Cheers. Thank you.
So, Brent, where can people, we've already said the name several times, but really, where can people go to get more information about IG Comic Store? Where can they go to see the exclusive variants that you are offering right now, and then those variants that may be coming in the future? Like, where can people go for information?
We started on Instagram, and that's probably the best place you can get this information. We're on Facebook, and I haven't really done a great job of just being as consistent as I would like. So I apologize for that. But Instagram is, it's a daily thing, and that's been our main source, Reggie, is really Instagram. But now, I mean, really, like the relationship that we have with our customers, I get on the phone with these guys. I talk with them like we're talking. So they already know that they can pick up the phone, call Jedi Master Brent, and they're gonna get exactly what they're seeking. Just whatever it is, I'm gonna help them with it.
There we go. So you heard it here first. Some really exciting news coming up in June and also July. And if you are interested in getting more information, go to Instagram, IG Comic Store. And then for those of you, there's like a handful of you that are not on Instagram, go to Facebook. You can also find Jedi Brent over on Facebook as well. So hopefully people reach out to you. It sounds like some really, really awesome stuff that is coming out. I haven't fully read all of the news that is coming to my inbox related to House of X and Power of X, but now I need to go read it so that I can fully appreciate everything that you've just rolled out here, because I'm an X-Men fan, as you can see by the wall behind me. But I'm excited about just the headlines that I've read on House of X and Power of X. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. So Brent, I want to thank you for taking some time to join me here on the channel. This discussion around the return of Jean Grey for Avengers and Fantastic Four was exciting. I had not read either of these books prior to the decision to actually do this show, so it prompted me to go read some cool books. I liked one better than the other, but had I not read them, I would not necessarily have known that. So I want to thank you for coming on the show, and also for encouraging me to read two awesome books, and also for doing the same for some others that are here in the room. Hopefully you guys get a chance to check out those books that Brent has basically recommended to you. Brent, any parting thoughts for you before we go?
Man, here's the twist, right? I'd like to, with your permission, I'd like to give away a facsimile Hulk 181, but what I'd like is for the people that are watching now to directly message Reggie, your name, and what we're going to do on the next show is we're going to do a live drawing if Reggie is okay with that. And that's it. I can even send this to Reggie, or I can do the live drawing, either way. But hey, man, we got a facsimile edition, Near Mint Plus 9A candidate, only for Regiment, Regiment show right here. So Regiment, I'm saying Regie Collectibles, Regiment. Gosh.
So let's do this. Let's do this. This was a complete surprise to me. I didn't know that this was going to happen, but this is what we're going to do. Send me an email. Send me an email to regiecollects@gmail.com. And I need your government name and whatever your YouTube name is, right? Send that to me, and then we will figure out how we're going to do the drawing to give away this wonderful facsimile copy of Hulk 181, of which I have 2 of the real ones back here, but we're going to give away Brent's facsimile cover, not mine. And that is very generous of you, Brent. Very generous, man. Can you show that book one more time?
Can you see this? I don't know if the glare is. Can you see
no,
that?
I think they see it, brother.
Oh, okay. Hey, for some reason, the glare on my end is just incredibly bad.
So there you go. If you're interested in winning this and you are watching this thing now or back on replay, send an email to regiecollects@gmail.com, and we are going to figure out how we're going to give this book away. And we will hopefully do it relatively soon so that you guys aren't waiting in the wings for whoever the winner is.
I'm so sorry to put you on the spot with this, bro. I was just like, you know what? Like I meant to mention this earlier and I forgot.
No, it's all good. No, that is not the original. This is a facsimile copy of Hulk 181 that Brent from IG Comic Store is going to give away to 1 subscriber and viewer of this video. So send an email to regiecollects@gmail.com, REGIE, and you could potentially be the winner of a facsimile copy of Hulk 181. So there we go. Brent, that is very generous of you, brother. I appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate you making some news here for folks and also for giving something away because people always like free stuff. So I definitely appreciate that. So if you guys have not yet subscribed to the channel, I definitely want to encourage you to do so because that way you won't miss out on cool stuff like this conversation, and also like this giveaway. So I want to say a quick goodbye to a couple of people here. Ronald is here. Heck X is saying I need to get Team Up 161 on that wall. I think it's in a bin back there. Travis is saying thanks, Brent. And Mr. Q Comics is saying thanks, guys. So Brent, any parting thoughts before we let everyone go for the evening?
You know, I'm just thankful that you called and that we had this cool conversation. And I look forward to more interesting and marvelous conversations, man. I'm excited. This was great. This was great. You're great.
Thank you, brother. And so are you. And on that note, we are going to wrap it up. If you guys need me, feel free to reach out to Reggie Collects on Instagram and regiecollects@gmail.com. Have a good night.